Hello, everyone. My name's Raj Dutt. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO here at Grafana Labs. It's my pleasure, my great pleasure, to welcome all of you to ObservabilityCON. We've got over 400 people joining us here in my favorite city, my home city, New York. It's been a couple of years since we put an event on here, and it's really cool to be back. Who here traveled from outside New York, by the way, to come? Wow, that's actually surprising. So like I said, welcome to one of the greatest cities in the world, and for those of you who traveled from the US, welcome to the only city in the United States. The rest of them are villages, and that's a friendly jab to our friends in the Bay Area. No, but in all seriousness, good to be back. Really excited to be here. Hope you all are too. Make some noise if you're excited to kick off ObsCon. Yeah? Very cool. So we've got a lot to share in this keynote. It's jam-packed, maybe too packed, to be honest. We were doing a run-through a little bit earlier, and we're worried that we might go over time. But assuming we don't go over time, or don't go over time too badly, we will have a Q&A session after the keynote. So if you want to load up some questions, go ahead and scan that QR code, and we'll try to make some time at the end. But like I said, I'm here just for a welcome. We've got some really great presenters. You're going to hear from some of the Grafana engineers who are actually building these products, making the cool stuff happen. You're going to hear from Tom, our CTO, Jen, our director of product. You're going to hear from Manoj, one of our VP of engineering. And you're also going to hear from two customers that were partnered around to do some really interesting stuff, specifically Aaron at NVIDIA and Olin at BlackRock. So we've got a really cool keynote scheduled for you. Also, hello to everyone watching the live stream. You're not here, you're not as cool, but hopefully you're going to have some fun. All right, so speaking of events, one of the coolest things about my job is I get to travel a lot, and I love to travel. And one of the reasons I get to travel a lot is we are an extremely international company. We're a remote-first company. We don't have a single office anywhere in the world, which makes life interesting for 1,200 people in 40-plus countries. It's really nice being an international company. It's really nice being, having such a global flavor. And one of the things when we first started the company that I used to tell investors all the time is investors would say, hey, you're going to save a lot of money on office space. And I'd say, yep, but we're going to spend it right back and more on travel. And that has been the case the last few years. We really like getting out there, meeting our customers, and these events are so important to us. And it's just been awesome the last few years as we spooled up our event cadence. Let's kind of leave 2020, 2021 in a repressed memory state. But it's really cool to meet customers, have these hallway tracks, and our event strategy is really on fire. We've had over 7,000 workshop signups the last year. I think we've had over 80,000 people attend a webinar. GrafanaCon is also a key event for us. Has anyone been to a GrafanaCon in this room, by any chance? All right, well, it is a different event than ObservabilityCON. GrafanaCon's all about our community, our open source projects, not a lot about our commercial products. It's not necessarily focused on observability. It's all about our big tent, showing all the wide use cases that Grafana is used for. We do these GrafanaCon local events where we bring GrafanaCon content to your city. And it's really a community-focused event. But this event, the one you're here at, ObservabilityCON, is really our flagship conference. It's about our products. It's really for our customers. It's focused on observability. And again, welcome. We also have ObservabilityCON on the road, where we meet our customers again, wherever they are. In the next few months, the team's going to be hitting up Sao Paulo, Brazil, Paris, I believe London, but it's pretty crazy. We've got a pretty crazy schedule from an events perspective, but again, it's really nice and a pleasure meeting our community and meeting customers. So the last year has been an incredible year for the company in terms of progression, in terms of maturity, in terms of stats. Kind of three cool stats that I'm happy to share that we've talked about is we now have over 25 million users within the Grafana community. That's overwhelmingly open source. That's our entire business model, right? We want to create a really large pie and monetize a very small piece of that pie. And it's incredible to see how the Grafana community continues to grow with over 25 million engineers and developers using our software every day. The company itself has also made quite a lot of progress from a commercialization standpoint. We now have over 5,000 paying customers. which is pretty incredible given where we started, which was obviously at 0. We've managed to kind of monetize a fair bit. Speaking of monetization, this stat blows my mind, but we announced that earlier this year, the Grafana Labs has hit a $250 million annualized run rate from a revenue perspective, which is pretty incredible. That's over $20 million a month in terms of revenue. So who here is a customer of ours, by the way? Excellent. And who here is a potential customer? Also excellent. We should take a photo of that and pass it to our sales team. No, just kidding. But in all seriousness, these stats, we couldn't have done this without you. We really appreciate your support, particularly customers who've been with us for since the early days. The platform, the breadth of our platform, the completeness of the vision has really kind of improved a lot the last few years and this last year, and we're eager to share that with you during the keynote. We've also achieved some recognition from across the industry. I'm not going to list these accolades, but one of the interesting things that's happening for us as a company is we're maturing and kind of moving beyond our open source community and starting to really go more head-to-head with some of the other observability players in the marketplace, right? And that's part of a journey that we're really excited about because we have ambitions to become and be the dominant observability platform in the world, but we're starting to appeal to the more mainstream audience rather than the early adopters and the startups that we kind of grew up with. And that's a really exciting change for us as a company that Tom, Jen, and others will talk more about. One award that we did get, which is kind of cool, is recognition from Gartner, where Grafana Labs was named a leader in the Magic Quadrant for observability platforms from Gartner. Who here listens to what Gartner has to say in terms of these sort of things? It's okay, yeah, a few people, that's cool. But a lot of people consider them pretty knowledgeable in these things, yeah, they know some stuff. But anyway, cool stuff overall, lots of momentum, and obviously some of you may have also read we recently did a new fundraise, which was quite an accomplishment, particularly in the market that we're in, and just as an indicator of the momentum and progress that the company's made. All right, so I'll just quickly announce a new program that we're launching, startup program. And a lot of companies have similar programs. Obviously, we have an open source project, so a lot of startups can obviously use our open source software for free, and that's by design. But we did see that there was a gap for startups who are not necessarily VC funded, and they're going through periods of tremendous growth and scaling. And good problem to have, obviously, but it carries financial risk for these companies. So, particularly for startups that have limited funds, they're often caught between reinvesting in their growth versus keeping the lights on. And we think it doesn't have to be like that. So we're really pleased to announce the Grafana Labs Startup Program. And what this program includes is $100,000 of credits to be used within the first 12 months of the partnership. And that includes the whole Grafana Cloud stack, everything from our back-end telemetry to performance testing to profiles to incident response, all the stuff we're going to talk about today. And it also includes a 20% discount on all our services once that 12 months is over, as well as kind of consulting from Grafana Labs to help startups bring their solutions into the Grafana ecosystem. So pretty excited about that, and unlike a lot of other programs, we don't require startups to be VC-backed or US-based, right? We're really looking to work with interesting companies, no matter your funding situation, no matter your location. So that's my intro. Like I said, we've got a really interesting keynote for you. We'll try to keep it on time. And to kick things off, I'd like to welcome our CTO, Tom Wilkie, and our Director of Product, Jen Villa, to tell you all this cool stuff that we've been up to. So thank you very much. Tom?
Thank you, Raj. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's good to be back in New York. Haven't been here for 2 years, I think. So yeah, my name is Tom. Jen is going to come up a bit later. We thought we'd not stand on stage together. So in the keynote, we're going to talk about 3 things, right? We're going to talk about how we're making our LGTM platform easier for a more mainstream market, for a more mainstream audience, as Raj talked about. We're going to talk about AI/ML. No tech keynote in 2024 would be complete without a mention of AI/ML. And we want to talk about how we're using it to really scale, your seasoned expertise and bring it to every engineer in your organization. And finally, we're going to talk about root cause analysis, how we're automating some of that, and how we're bringing context to your Grafana stack. So I'm not going to talk about all of this, don't worry. I'm going to focus mostly on the first bit. We've got other speakers for the next two pieces. So let's talk about easier LGTM. So firstly, what is LGTM, right? Who here is familiar with that term? Hopefully, if you're at this conference, you're at least vaguely familiar with LGTM. This is our observability platform, right? It means Loki, Grafana, Tempo, and Mimir for logs, Grafana, traces, and metrics. If you ask some of our sales team at the back, they'll say it means let's get the money. If you ask our product management, they probably think it means let's get this merged. But we all know it also means looks good to me, right? So this LGTM platform's been very popular, huge number of users worldwide, huge volume of data is being stored in it, both in Grafana Cloud and on-premise with the open source software. It really appeals to these early adopters and kind of people who want to get their hands dirty, people who want to learn PromQL, LogQL, the query languages, people that want to build their own dashboards, people that like getting their hands on technology, right? We grew with this kind of rise of observability, with all of these practitioners learning how to build these things and how to get value out of these tools. But what we found over the past few years is that we've been appealing more to this broader, more mainstream audience. Who here would think they're an early adopter of this technology? Who here thinks they're mainstream? Hands up if you're a mainstream audience for this. Oh, okay, not that many. Oh, well, you might want to have a nap for the next few section then. Anyway, so we noticed the audience that a lot of our events was changing, right? And these are people who have day jobs, right? These are people who don't have the time, they don't have the expertise to deal with all of this, and they just want something that works out the box. So this was about 3 years ago, we started trying to build a more curated experience in Grafana, right? In Grafana Cloud. We started first by building lots of what we call integrations, not very imaginatively named, I will say. When we started this project, we launched the first integration, which was the Linux integration. So this is a package of curated dashboards and alerts with the Grafana agent, now using Alloy, of course, that just works out the box, right? So when you sign up to Grafana Cloud, you click the button, and you just get something that works, right? We launched with one. It was a little bit embarrassing just to have one, but we very quickly, over the next year or so, got up to 50 integrations. When last time we were in New York 2 years ago, we had 50 of these things. It was a big milestone for us. I think it was when this really started to work for us. So today, I wanted to kind of show the breadth of cloud integrations that we have. We have over 100 now. We've been beavering away. There's at least 24 of them are new this year. But also, we're not just launching new ones. 30 of these have been revised and updated this year. These behind the scenes, these are all open source. They all live on GitHub. We work with the upstream community to make sure that they're actually showing the right telemetry and the right signals for the users. And we get to build very pretty slides like this. If you're not familiar with the sort order, it's by color. So one of the other things that I quite like about this project is behind the scenes, we've built a lot of really cool tools to help maintain the quality and improve the quality of these integrations. So there's a little-known project in our GitHub called the Dashboard Linter that has 50 or so really opinionated rules about what should be on your dashboards and how they should be presented. And it will fail, for instance, if you don't have labels on your axes. Pet peeve of mine is no one ever labels their axes. So yeah, all of these integrations have labels on their axes. These drive about 25% of all of the volume of telemetry that gets sent to Grafana Cloud. I just want to call out a couple in here. The most popular ones is actually still the Linux integration, the first one we launched 3 or 4 years ago. And then the open source stack is really still the most popular set. So MySQL, Postgres, things like Nginx, Docker, Istio is also one of our most popular ones. A logo missing from here is, I think it's missing. A logo missing from here is Kubernetes. We started with one of the first integrations after the Linux one was the Kubernetes integration. And this was quite a big collection of dashboards based on a project called the Kubernetes Mixin. It had a dashboard for every single resource type in Kubernetes, and they were all connected together, and you could kind of navigate between them. But it was a bit of a clunky experience. So we took all of that, and we built a React application embedded in Grafana that's much more seamless, much more interconnected and richer. It allows you to more easily navigate between all your Kubernetes resources. For instance, one of the workflows that I really like about the Kubernetes app is that you can find your pod that you're particularly interested in. You can quickly navigate to the host that pod's sitting on and see all the noisy neighbors that are impacting your pod's performance. This is no longer an integration. This is now a fully fledged cloud application that we've built. We launched it a year ago. I just wanted to highlight the difference between these integrations and these applications. And we've slowly been extending the Kubernetes app to add like cost monitoring to it, for instance. Today, I want to announce that we've also taken the AWS, Google, and Azure integrations and turned those into rich cloud provider applications inside Grafana Cloud. So these are so much more now than just a set of dashboards and alerts. This is a Grafana Scenes, which is our technology to build these applications. Like our Kubernetes app, this is interconnected and a unified experience that makes it much easier for you to navigate your cloud provider accounts and figure out what's going on. Today, this is going GA with support for all of the 3 major cloud providers, and it's serverless, if you know what I mean, right? You don't have to install the agent. You just have to connect your Grafana Cloud account to your cloud provider account, and will automatically slurp in all the telemetry. So yeah, if you want to see this, go and check out the demo booths downstairs. I think we've got some demos showing there. So I want to move on from infrastructure observability. I want to talk a little bit about synthetic monitoring and performance testing. Synthetic monitoring is actually one of the very first kind of opinionated solutions we built for this more mainstream audience. It actually predates, I think, almost all of our products at Grafana Labs. It's like we launched it 8 years ago as a thing called WorldPing. Right? And it's one of the easiest ways to get started with Grafana Cloud. You just put in the name of your website, the domain of your website, and we will ping it and check reachability from 25 locations around the world. It's really useful to know if people in Asia or Europe, where I'm from, can actually reach your website, right? K6, on the other hand, is our performance testing tool. This is really popular around this time of year, and users use it to check that their web store is going to survive the kind of surge of traffic on Black Friday. Over the past year, we've really seen these 2 products as 2 ends of a spectrum, right? And we've been unifying them to make it so that not only can you take all of the power of K6 and run those in synthetic monitoring checks, but you can take any test you write and run them as either, right? This kind of unification should give you a lot more flexibility to write a synthetic monitor check that runs, every 5 minutes from 20, 30 locations around the world. But then when it comes to that time of the year when you need to check your website is up, you can actually run it 100,000 times from one data center to make sure your website will survive Black Friday. But we're not just focused on unifying the technology behind the scenes and making this possible. We're also focused on making it easier for you to write these tests. Up until now, the tests for K6 have been JavaScript tests. And we think that's been a bit of a barrier to adoption for K6 because not everyone, including myself, wants to write JavaScript. I'm more of a Golang engineer. Anyway, today our focus is on making it easier to write tests for K6 and synthetics. We're launching a desktop application. I think this might actually be our first desktop application we've ever launched. And it allows you to more easily build these tests using low code, no code, and a UI. Right, one of the reasons we built this as a desktop application is it can actually intercept the web traffic from your browser, record the pages that you're visiting into a test, and then upload that to Grafana Cloud, run it as a synthetic check or as a load test, right? So it can record these browser sessions for automatically building these tests. Something we're very excited about. Love you to give it a go, try it out, and see what you think. And that's not the only way we're making it easier to run tests. We're also making it easier to get data out of these tests. So as part of Synthetics browser-based tests, we're running little headless Chrome instances and fully loading your web page, right? So not just checking now that your website is reachable, we're checking that the page loads, that all the resources loads, that all the scripts run properly. We're exposing and recording all of the web vitals from this page load. We're also exposing the DOM from your website to a K6 JavaScript test so you can start to introspect it and check it's loaded properly. Right, and these browser-based synthetics has been one of the biggest requests from our customers on synthetics for a while now, and we're really kind of excited to announce a private preview. If this is something you're interested in, talk to one of the team at the Ask the Experts booth. They'll get you signed up, and hopefully this will be publicly available pretty soon. Right then. Lastly, we're not just focused on making Grafana Cloud easier to use, easier to get started with, easier to write tests for. We're also focused on making it easier for you to migrate from other vendors. Right? We've got a lot of customers coming to us saying, our bills with some of the other vendors are too high. We want to move to Grafana Cloud. OpenTelemetry is this technology that promises this kind of vendor neutrality, right? Promises you the ability to seamlessly, instrument once and migrate between different vendors really easily. Unfortunately, it doesn't really deliver on that, not necessarily from day zero, right? A lot of vendors support receiving OpenTelemetry. We supported receiving OpenTelemetry for years now, but they don't really let you, instrument with vendor-specific frameworks and then send that telemetry to any vendor you want, right? You have to use the OpenTelemetry instrumentation. As Raj mentioned at the beginning, Big Tent, this idea that we prioritize interoperability is core to what we do at Grafana Labs. And we think OpenTelemetry's promise of interoperability is brilliant, and we think it's our job to make sure it delivers on that promise. As part of that, we've built a Datadog metrics receiver and upstreamed it to the OpenTelemetry collector. So now, if you're an existing Datadog customer, you can use the OpenTelemetry collector, be it the upstream one, be it Grafana Alloy, our distribution of the OpenTelemetry collector. You can use it to translate the metrics from your Datadog agent and from your Datadog instrumentation into OTLP, OpenTelemetry's line protocol. Right? And then from there, you can send that to any Prometheus-compatible system, including, obviously, Grafana Cloud, like we hope some of you will choose Grafana Cloud for that. But you can also choose to send it anywhere. Right? You can choose to send it to any vendor that supports OpenTelemetry, not just us. Right? We really believe that this kind of rising tide approach will raise all ships. So if you want to hear more, there is a talk later about instrumentation, about Alloy and Baylor, where the authors of this, they're in the audience somewhere, will talk about how this is done. Okay, so finally, there's one other thing that I think is really cool here. This is just part of the problem, right? So we can migrate the data path so that quickly, you can send your telemetry from existing instrumentation through the OpenTelemetry collector to Grafana Cloud. But one of the other things we can do is export the dashboards from Datadog, translate those queries into PromQL, and import them into Grafana seamlessly. And that's not all. We can take the Datadog monitors, where you might have tens of thousands of monitors written in Datadog, and we can translate those into Prometheus alerts. And because of the way Prometheus does alerting, does it kind of multi-dimensional alerting, we can actually dedupe like tens of thousands of alerts down to a handful, maybe 1,000 or so alerts in Grafana Cloud to make them much more manageable. So there's this really cool translation tool that we have that we can help you if you want to migrate from Datadog to Grafana Cloud. Okay, so with that, I'm done for now. I want to introduce Jen, who's going to talk about some other ease of use improvements. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Tom. All right, thanks very much, Tom. I'm going to continue on the topic of how we're making observability easier for a wider audience to adopt. And to do that, I'm going to talk about Explore Metrics and Explore Logs. Some of you may remember we first announced these back in April at GrafanaCON. What they are experiences that allow you to navigate data stored in Prometheus or any Prometheus-compatible backend, like Mimir, or in the case of Explore Logs, a Loki backend, and do it without having to write a query language, say PromQL or LogQL. And why is this? We'd heard from a lot of users that one of the biggest challenges to getting started with observability is the fact that you had to learn a query language before you could actually start to get any value out of your observability data. So what we did with Explore Metrics and Explore Logs is that we now have replaced typing queries with a point-and-click UI. We've replaced empty start screens with pre-populated visualizations, making it possible for anyone from day one to start getting value out of their metrics and logs. Now, since we announced this back in April, we've seen a ton of enthusiasm and adoption for both of these. And given that, we've spent the last couple months really listening to early adopter feedback and making a lot of improvements to both. And that's why today I'm super excited to announce the fact that both Explore Metrics and Explore Logs are now generally available for both cloud and in open source. Now, we made a number of improvements in the lead up to GA. With Explore Metrics, we've improved our related metrics section, making it easier and better recommendations about what metrics you should look at based on the one you currently have open. With Explore Logs, we added the ability to automatically visualize attributes stored in Loki's structured metadata. This is particularly great for those of you out there using open telemetry logging. We also tuned our pattern detection functionality so that we can quickly surface the most common patterns in your log lines to you. And we're definitely not done there. After this GA, we intend to fast follow with a number of upgrades to both Explore Metrics and Logs. For Explore Metrics, we're adding support for native histograms, a higher resolution histogram type relative to classic histograms. We're also going to be incorporating machine learning into our related metrics, so we can surface metrics that have similar shapes and patterns to all of your users. With Explore Logs, we're adding streaming support, both to your graphs and to the log lines we show you, which means less time for you waiting around for results. Now, based on the success of both Explore Metrics and Explore Logs, I'm excited to announce that we have 2 new additions to the family, Explore Traces and Profiles. We've decided to extend the experience of these 2 across all the pillars of observability. Both of Explore Traces and Profiles are available in public preview, again, both in cloud and in open source. Upon completing this suite of Explore apps, what we can now offer is a full suite of options. So each user can choose how it is that they want to work. This reflects our belief that observability isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. For those who are going to want that full control and infinite flexibility, they can type out queries in code mode. And let me tell you, I have been blown away by the things I've seen some of the folks on our engineering team do with these like 50+ line PromQL queries. For those who want something kind of more in the middle, there's the builder mode. That's sort of what I think of as maybe like a low code or a visual programming experience. That's going to be a great way actually to learn the query languages, because it gives you a point and click way to string together numerous operations. And then for those that just want push to start, let's get going, we have the Explore apps. No queries, no code, just easy insights. Whew. Well, it wouldn't be a Grafana Labs keynote without a live demo, so I'm going to try to do this right now. You know, I had wanted to do a video demo, and then Tom told me that was lame. So please cross your fingers for me. I'm about to take you on a little ride through Explore Traces, one of our newest additions to the family. Now, I'm a product manager, which means I've left the noble discipline of engineering, but let's pretend, for the sake of this demo, that Jen is still an engineer working on an e-commerce platform. If you drop into Explore Traces, let's say I'm just here on the screen, and let's say I've gotten a page that my error budget SLO for my product catalog service is burning down a bit quicker than we would expect. Dropping into the main Explore Traces page, you see your red metrics at the top, your request rate, error rate, and your duration. Since my page was about errors, I'm going to start by selecting errors. Helpfully down here, you'll see that Explore Traces automatically breaks down that error rate by service name. Since my page was about the product catalog service, I'll quickly add that to my filters. The next thing you kind of ask yourself in a classic debugging workflow is, what is unique about these requests that are erroring as compared to the ones that are completing successfully? Luckily, now we have this comparison tab to help you with that. What the comparison is going to do is compare a selection, in this case, the selected traces are my erroring traces, to my baseline. So those are the traces representing requests that are completing successfully. What Explore Traces is going to do is, out of the box, it's going to look at every single attribute on my traces and compare the baseline to the selection. It's going to sort to the top the attributes that show the largest delta between the baseline and the selection. And what do I see? Quickly push to the top here. Well, it actually looks like all of my errors are happening on one particular product ID. And clicking inspect, that's exactly what I can see. This product ID represents all of the errors. All of the other product IDs seem to be completing just fine. I can quickly add that product ID to my filters. And then from there, I can actually open up some erroring traces matching that criteria. Again, speeding along my debugging because I go to exactly the sort of representative trace that I want. Now, let's pretend while we've been here dealing with our error SLO, I at the same time got a notification from my support team. It seems like some of my users on my e-commerce site are complaining that the site's loading pretty slowly for them. Maybe they weren't using the synthetics that Tom was talking about. So there, since the page is about slow loading, what I'm going to do is look at my duration signal. Again, the first thing you see is that Explore Traces is showing you all of your services and breaking down their P90 latencies. What I can see is that I have several services with P90s on the order of seconds. So I want to now figure out what, again, is going wrong. And so again, I ask myself, what is unique about these high latency requests versus those that are completing in a reasonable amount of time? Again, I come over to my trusty comparison tab. This time, we can actually use a selection ability in the Explore Traces app to pick a set of traces. I'm going to try to select here the slowest of the slow traces here up top. Then I'm going to be able to compare the traces falling in this selection, this orange box, to the traces falling outside of that, my baseline. I'm going to hope that my page actually loads. All right, there we go. And so again, you see the distinction. We're automatically comparing across all attributes, the difference between my selection, my super slow traces, and my baseline. Since support said it was something related to some users, I'll quickly filter down to user-related attributes. And what I can see is, hey, there's a certain set of user IDs that seem to be in the slow traces group, and then a certain set that are in my baseline. I can similarly see, if I look at the user.location, that certain locations are disproportionately represented in those slow traces. So that allows me to, again, narrow my search and look at traces from those particular locations to figure out what's going on. It's also great for me because I can go back to support and say, hey, this looks like this probably isn't an issue for all of our users, but it's just a subset. So with that, I know that was a bit of a whirlwind tour of Explore Traces. If you want to see a longer demo, please check out our session tomorrow on, let's see if I can get my slides back up. I will tell you what the name of said session is. But we'll be doing a much deeper dive into all of the Explore apps. All right, I got my next slide. OK, so that wraps up what we wanted to talk about with our easier LGTM story. And now, as Tom said, we're going to talk about the topic that no 2024 tech keynote would be complete without, which is AI/ML. Now, at Grafana, we've spent a lot of time thinking about what AI/ML means for our industry, for observability. And what we've concluded is that the biggest impact AI/ML will have in our space is that it's going to allow all of you, all of your companies, to scale observability expertise across your entire organization. It's as if you're going to be able to take that intuition and judgment of your most seasoned observability engineer and give that to everyone at your company. Let's take, for example, what we've done with adaptive metrics. At Grafana Labs, when our time series started running away from us, we used to have to go to our most seasoned veterans to help us out with that. So we'd take someone like Brian Borum at our company, who is an actual Prometheus maintainer with a title of distinguished engineer, and we'd send him out to go spelunk and find some savings for us. That would probably involve things like writing PromQL queries to identify high cardinality metrics and high churn labels, writing logQL queries to analyze our query logs, It might involve jumping into our code base to actually manually update our instrumentation. It would involve his knowledge of our company, reaching out to the specific teams who own that instrumentation and say, hey, I'm going to have to make some changes here. Now, with adaptive metrics, what we've done is take that expertise and actually build it into Grafana Cloud. We've turned human intelligence into machine intelligence and scaled it in a way that wasn't possible before. Now, a new joiner in their first week can review a recommendation to aggregate a metric and start saving your company thousands of dollars, and do it with the confidence that the engineer next to them is not going to shout at them because they just made some alert go haywire or broke a dashboard. We've been extremely impressed with the success of adaptive metrics to date, both in terms of adoption and in terms of total savings. And we've continued to invest. In particular, we're investing more and more in our recommendation service, making it more sophisticated so it can identify more savings, and making it more real-time so it can react more quickly to changes in your company's usage patterns. Building on that success, we talked last year about adaptive logs, which we announced in research. And now I'm excited to say that we're ready to promote adaptive logs to general availability. I'm extremely excited, and hats off to our team that developed this, with the speed at which we were able to take adaptive logs from inception to GA, having the time it took us to do this for adaptive metrics. Now, adaptive logs is built on the same philosophy as adaptive metrics, where we analyze your incoming data and we compare it to your usage patterns to make a set of tailored recommendations for you. However, because metrics and logs are slightly different telemetry signals, what's happening under the hood is slightly different. With adaptive logs, what we're doing is using an ML algorithm known as drain to extract the most common patterns from your incoming log lines. Then we analyze all the queries happening in your system, and we count the number of times in the query results that we return to your queries a certain pattern shows up. That allows us to then make a customized recommendation to you of how much we should keep versus sample each particular pattern, with the philosophy that for patterns where we see log lines matching that pattern being returned very frequently, we want to mostly hold on to those patterns. If, on the other hand, you have a pattern that is almost never returned in a query result, we're going to recommend sampling most of that away. Now, using this kind of approach, we've actually seen our customers, our early adopters, and even ourselves decrease their total ingested log volume by anywhere from 40 to 60%. And that's pretty impressive because what we can say now is that it's actually, using this, becoming more cost-effective to use Grafana Cloud logs than it is to run open source Loki yourself. As with adaptive metrics, the savings that we're able to realize here used to be the sort of savings that you can only get if you had some sort of seasoned observability engineer on your team. Now, again, we've built that directly into our product so that any engineer from day one can help you realize that kind of savings. Now, the grand vision that we're working towards is what we've taken to calling adaptive telemetry. This is a world in which we've pruned away all the noise and just retained the signal, extracting it from that fire hose of observability we know everyone's systems are generating. In so doing, we're ensuring that every byte of data that you store is worth what you're paying for it. This vision is only possible via the use of AI and ML, because without this, there's no way we would be able to do the kind of analysis of your incoming data and your query patterns at the scale and as real time as it needs to be for this to work. And if you can't do that kind of analysis, there's no way you can provide intelligent recommendations about what to drop versus what to keep. Now, for those of you wishing that those research tags up there under adaptive traces and adaptive profiles actually said GA, I do have some good news for you. We're excited to announce that Sean Porter, the founder of startups TailCtrl and Sensu, has joined Grafana Labs. Now, TailCtrl's mission, which was to make every trace stored worthy of attention, aligns extremely well with our own vision for adaptive traces. And we've been really impressed with what TailCtrl was already doing to develop intelligent sampling policies for traces that evolve in real time based on changes in your own systems. With Sean's leadership, we're excited. We know it'll supercharge our development of adaptive traces, after which we'll be on to tackle adaptive profiles. If you want to learn more about adaptive telemetry in general, please make sure to join my talk tomorrow that I'll be giving with one of our engineers, Edward, where we'll dive even further into some of the AI/ML capabilities in Grafana Cloud. And with that, I'm happy to bring Tom back up on stage to keep adding to the AI/ML conversation, this time with some updates on LLM observability.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Well done. Right, me again. So as Jen kind of spoiled with her introduction, thank you, we want to talk a little bit about LLM observability. We've been working on a series of technologies here to make it easier to understand the training and operation of large language models, right? Unlike things like infrastructure, where the use method is a really common kind of monitoring pattern, or microservices, where the red method is something you might use, LLMs have a series of unique challenges, and when it comes to instrumenting and understanding the behavior, this is a really developing field. So we're doing all of this in open source on our GitHub. We really want to hear from people using these tools we've developed and tell us where they help, where they don't help, and we're looking for a community kind of collaboration here. So firstly, I want to talk about a project. There we go. I want to talk about how we're using Baylor, which is our eBPF-based auto-instrumentation library, to automatically instrument CUDA calls. So CUDA is a common library used. I'm not an AI/ML expert. I don't really know much about this kind of thing, to be honest. But we're doing this so that AI developers can quickly get insights into their models as they're running and as they're being trained, right? We've added these probes to intercept these API calls. They're in a branch on Baylor. It's all in open source in GitHub, and it generates a series of Prometheus metrics. We are working on extending this to also do kind of profiling of these models as well. And we really just want to see where the community is interested. So if this is something that you're interested in, like again, Ask the Experts booth can give you more info, point you to the right place on GitHub. The second project we've been working together on is an OpenLit integration. So OpenLit is an open source framework for monitoring the inference, like the running of these models, right? It's OpenTelemetry native and helps you kind of gain insights into the performance of these applications in production. We've built an open source cloud integration, right? So this is, again, a package of curated dashboards and alerts and makes it really easy to get started with OpenLit on your open source Grafana or on Grafana Cloud. It's all sitting up on GitHub. Again, link will be at the Ask the Experts booth. The third project, though, is the one I'm most excited about. But I'm not going to talk about that. As I said, I'm not the expert here. We've got a Grafana Cloud customer, Aaron from NVIDIA, to come and talk about it. Please welcome Aaron on stage. Thank you, Aaron.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Hi. Good to see everybody. So one of the things we're really excited about, and we're really happy to be Grafana customers, and this is really critical for what we're trying to accomplish, is actually being able to understand the telemetry for how training is going. So imagine you're trying to build a foundation model or trying to do a massive tune of model. Actually understanding, is the model converging? Is the training progressing along with the low-level telemetry to understand are GPUs okay, or is the heat okay, everything else, is critical to be able to understand, am I making a good investment in these training runs? Sometimes these training runs can run for weeks or months, and if it fails, that's a lot of resources that you've given up for no particularly good reason. It is really important to have this, and we're really thrilled to be design partners to help them build this out so we can achieve what we need to achieve, as well as any other customer that needs to run training jobs on GPUs as well. So we're super excited about that. I'm going to talk today, though, about a little story, a very brief story, about what my life was like back in the day when I was a VP of engineering for an observability company. Now, imagine you wake up every day at 6 a.m. and you're responsible for helping your CEO understand by, say, 8 a.m. what happened last night, what happened the night before. What I would often have to do, read the back scroll in Slack, read everything, call a bunch of directors, call a bunch of ICs, call the people that were handling the incident, ask things like, what customers were impacted? What regions were impacted? What was the possible root causes so we can actually start to write the incident report so we can inform our customers what's happening? This was during a move to the cloud every day of my life for 6 months while we were resolving this problem. It was not a fun time. And one thing I realized once we had LLMs is we know LLMs hallucinate sometimes, right? Has everybody had an LLM hallucinate? Who amongst us who's ever resolved an incident and had a senior leader ask that morning what happened? Who here is also not hallucinated as to what happened? It's all happened to all of us, and if you don't believe it, ask your developers. It happens all the time. And it's really something that inspired me once I realized that, wait a second, with this new technology, with GPT-4, I can take a question in human and translate that to a question in any number of query languages, including things like PromQL, including everything that we would use with Grafana to understand what happened last night. For me to be able to, as an engineer, initially get some idea, initially then start to ask some more questions, and really come up with at least a plausible cause of what happened, and dive into issues so I can get better answers. And again, it may not be perfect, but neither are the humans. So as we started to think about this idea more at NVIDIA, we really got excited about this system we're building, which starts with something called retrieval agents. These are based on NVIDIA NIM technology, what's called NVIDIA Inference Microservices, and they call up all the data sources, including all of our Grafana data sources, that are required to be able to answer these questions. They answer questions from analyst agents that are trained on things like how do H100s run, how do GB200s run, how do all the different components run in the data center. These are asked oriented by orchestrator agents, or things that we put in what's called the OODA loop, observe, orient, do, act. And these things actually try to ask those questions to the analysts, figure out what went wrong, and then invoke actions and tasks to be able to bring a JIRA ticket up or call PagerDuty or whatnot. And we think this agent flywheel of not just being able to do this in a cycle, but having more and more agents added to the system allows us to solve many more problems. We've built something, we call it Lollipop. It's kind of a cheesy name, large language model for observability. And what this is allowing us to do is ask questions like, give a graph of Slurm job failures. Give me the 5 best possible causes of what went wrong last night. Give me something about what were the clusters that need maintenance over time. All these different kinds of questions. Anything about the data center. We can talk to the data center early days and start to get answers from that because it's multiple LLMs trained on various areas of expertise. It's a really, really incredible concept that we are really excited about. So amongst those things, we have conviction that this will be a model that a lot of people will use. But most importantly, this stuff does not work if you do not ground it in ground truth. If you do not understand that the query that you're coming back with, what the LLM might generate, is actually has something in a Grafana dashboard or some kind of technology that allows you to understand exactly what happened. Okay, because LLMs are not perfect. They do hallucinate sometimes. And so we want to be able to use this to build dashboards over time, to be able to ask a question, get a dashboard link, ask another question, get another dashboard link, and start to really understand more dynamically what is happening in our data centers across the world, across any number of cloud providers, across every continent on Earth where we have GPUs. This is what we're really excited about. We can't wait to see what we build with Grafana to be able to enable all this kind of stuff that is really, I never thought I'd be able to see this in my career, and I'm really happy we get to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. That was brilliant, thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Right then, last time I'm on, I promise. I want to talk about one more thing. No keynote would be complete. I try and slip one of these in every time. Raj normally stops me. I'm surprised he didn't this time. But yeah, I want to talk about one more thing, and that's how we actually build products at Grafana Labs. Right? We have a pretty unique engineering culture, I think. We give a lot of freedom and a lot of autonomy to the engineers at the company. Right? And part of the culture here is that we do these quarterly hackathons, right? So we give them a week of each quarter to do whatever they want. And it's very much whatever they want. Some teams use it to improve their internal tooling or just catch up on some backlog. Some teams go off and do completely greenfield projects. A lot of the things we've presented to you so far started life as a hackathon project. The Explore apps were a hackathon project, right, for instance. And I want to show you a sneak peek into the winner of the hackathon that was about 5 weeks ago. Right? And we're working to get this into the product. We're looking, again, for customers and users to kind of work with us on this. But I want to talk about something called incident rooms, right? The winning hackathon project from last year. It's a really good use case, an exciting use case of AI/ML. I'm actually not going to talk about it. I'm just going to show you the part of the hackathon process is we have every team record a 5-minute video. And then we judge those videos. Everyone, we all get together, we judge those videos, and then the shortlist gets shown at a company all hands where the whole company votes for the winner. We're not going to show you the whole 5 minutes. We've edited it down to about 2 minutes. So should we run the video?
I'm the bot, and today we're thrilled to introduce you to a revolutionary addition to our incident management tool, Incident. We call it Incident Rooms. Incident response teams often face a common challenge: staying focused on resolving issues while keeping accurate records. During the intensity of an incident, it's easy to forget to document crucial details. Let's step into a day in the life of our incident response team before incident rooms.
So the problem is that the coffee machine is out of memory again.
Why is our coffee machine equipped with memory?
It stores profiles for different coffee types. I'm following the run book and checked water, beans, and power.
Have you tried power cycling it?
Power cycling? Oh, that's a good idea. Give me a sec. Yeah, looks like power cycling helped.
I think that resolves the incident then, right?
I think so. Can someone mark the incident as resolved? Looks like the coffee is brewing again. Everyone's going to be happy, including me. Thanks, everyone.
Great work, team. I'll document the steps taken.
Their expertise leads to a swift resolution. Notice their intense focus on the problem, but also note notes and logs are sometimes missed in the process. With no notes or logs, they resort to using an AI to help. When there is no context, the AI hallucinates, generating a report filled with inaccuracies. Now let's reimagine this scenario with incident rooms. Incident rooms is a built-in feature within Incident, enhanced by a helpful LLM bot. Now, our team enters an incident room with the bot seamlessly integrated into their workflow. While the team focuses on resolving the issue, the bot keeps track of their conversations, notes key points, and responds to voice commands, allowing them to stay fully engaged in problem solving. But the bot isn't just a note taker. He's learned a few new tricks too. From executing Grafana incident actions on your behalf to delivering instant ad hoc summaries via the Grafana Incident Slack Assistant, the bot makes managing incidents smoother and more efficient. Throughout the process, stakeholders can interact with the bot for real-time updates on the incident's status. This ensures that everyone is informed and up to date effortlessly. With the bot by your side, syncing incident statuses, providing updates, or running actions across different media channels has never been easier or faster. We're excited to see how incident rooms can revolutionize your incident response workflow.
So yeah, we're super excited about getting that in the hands of our users. We're starting to use it internally, and not having to take notes during an incident bridge is just like amazing. So I am now officially done for the day. I'm going to introduce you to our last speaker, Manoj. Thank you very much for having me. Welcome, Manoj. Hey, how you doing? Take time.
Okay, so I'm in the overtime. And you always save the best for the last, right? Excited to be back in New York City, the city I called home for about 3 years. And me and my wife totally enjoyed our time here. When we decided to have kids, we moved to suburban Bay Area. But once we shipped them to college, we plan to go back to the city, come back to Rod City. So let me tell you about how I joined Grafana here. So I started Grafana just about a year ago through an acquisition called Asserts. Some of you may have heard of it or from the last year ObsCon. Now, so the founding idea of Asserts, so I've been kind of building this monitoring products, APM products for my lifelong, for about 20 plus years. So the founding idea of Asserts was very simple. Literally, Jen was talking about brand Burham. So there are only few brand Burhams in the world, so we cannot really. And how do I make brand's intuition go into every engineer's head in my org, right? So that was the main idea. So what if there was an expert system that really understood what our telemetry data looks like and continuously analyzing it and finding all those tidbits of information that automatically makes troubleshooting super easy. So troubleshooting is something that we do every day. We get excited about it. We go into rabbit holes. But if you don't have that intuition of engineer, like a distinguished engineer like Brand, you could be going in all the different directions because we have quite a few dashboards. And I've met organizations who have thousands, 20,000, maybe 100,000 dashboards. And these days we can even generate dashboards, right? We can just write, I don't know, maybe LLMs can even start creating dashboards now. But the dashboards are pretty good. I don't know which one to go to. That's kind of a big problem, right? And again, each of the metric, every metric, every traces and logs that I'm generating, there is no consistency in labeling the data. I mean, in the world of AI ML, we call this thing labeling the data. So that's kind of a big problem. There's no consistency in labeling. And then, I used to work at a company called actually Citibank right here, was responsible for a trading platform, but I joined a different company. The architecture is completely different. The trading platform looks very different. So, and now imagine, how do I transcribe this knowledge to every engineer in the org? So let me share with you how we are approaching this problem in Grafana Cloud. Now, so we're not going to ask you to install any new agents. We got LGTM easier, pretty cool stuff. We got all the integrations catalog, or you can bring your own metrics. You're running your own Prometheus exporter right now, so bring it on to Grafana Cloud. And once you send the data to the cloud, so we have this thing we are calling as inference engine. The idea is very simple, right? I want to have the intuition of Brand, the inferencing that Brand does in his head into the product. So what if this engine actually understood all the labels, all the data coming to the cloud, and automatically catalog them, and then start walking the topology, imagine the topology of the data, and analyze it, and present it to you, this beautiful, cool, what are you calling as RCA workbench, that brings all the data together, so you can do troubleshooting like Brand. Okay, now my next demo is dedicated to Brand. Okay, let's get it started. I'm going to switch from. Okay, so let's get started. Now, we know about alerts. We love our alerts, symptom-based alerts. We all know about it. We call them SLOs. But how do you make SLOs easy? I go and talk to engineering leaders. I don't know, which one I should find. How do you even create SLO? How do I know I should be creating an SLO on this or not? So the first thing we did is integrate the whole SLO, improve the whole SLO experience in Grafana Cloud. So if you are, let's say I'm running a web app, I'm just going to type, just refresh my screen here. My laptop is kind of been slipping. So I just pick up I have a front-end service, and I pick up the service name. I said, okay, I want to create SLO for this. I'm just a new guy. I know there's a front-end app there. I'll pick the app name, and I'll create SLO for that, right? So now I've already done that here. So if I go back to my SLO screen here. Now what's happened is, once you create SLO, the beauty of what we did is that we are, as the telemetry is getting ingested, we're automatically tagging those metrics. the system knows what's the request metric, what's the error metric, what's the duration metric, what are the CPU and disk metrics. It's tagging those metrics as it is coming to the Grafana Cloud. So it's automatic. You don't have to do the work. I mean, if you already have a custom metrics, just bring it on, right? We'll show you how to do that yourself. But in this case, the front-end data coming from our Faro agent is already labeled. So if you're using open source Faro agent, set it on, and we will label it and have it available to you. So I have this SLO created, pretty simple, right? Error total, request total, look at the ratio, and tell me if something went wrong. I mean, it cannot be easier than this. So now I have an alert that fired. I'm kind of simulating some errors here. It fired yesterday while I was in New York City. And there's a nice little link here. Calls, take me to the RCA workbench, right? So, I just click on it. Now, what happened here is that every time you create an SLO or an alert, it'll automatically link you back. It'll look at the service label or the job label and automatically take you to the connected services. So it's kind of scanning the system and quickly figured out, OK, the front-end app is connected to all the services. And I'm going to pull all these things and show you all the potential causes, the troubleshooting gates. And in this case, we call them assertions or checks. So there is a quick graph here. If you want to get curious and want to take a look at this thing, you can quickly understand what part of the architecture is in trouble. So, and here I have this thing called front-end proxy that is sending all the requests to front-end service, and it looks like it's ranked to the very top here. So it's like highest score. We have a scoring this based on what I call as an assertion score. They get time and space analysis. So it's pulled to the very top. So that's interesting. Now I'm really curious. Okay, this alert fire, were my end users affected? We always care for Tom talked about synthetic. I love synthetic. It's cool, but there's real fun in real user monitoring, right? Synthetic will not catch real user monitoring. So I'm going to ask the system, hey, dude, can you tell me if any users were affected? So I'm going to click on this button called Find Me Problematic Connections. So every time you ask this question to Asserts, what it does, it again walks the graph, right? It'll walk the graph and pull in all the relevant information. So in this case, it is now pulled in the front-end client at the very top, ranked to the very top. And I'm going to quickly look at the summary view here. Oh, it looks like all those different endpoints, the product endpoint, the card endpoint, are having massive amount of errors. So I can quickly jump into the front-end observability, right? So we have a fully React app that is built for front-end data only, right? So Grafana already has for Kubernetes, for application observability, for open telemetry, for your browser data, everything is kind of built in. But now it is taking you to that part of the app, and quickly you can start browsing and launch front-end observability and get into more details, error logs and error sessions and everything else. I will not do that. I will save that for our upcoming session. Now, let's come back to the app, right? So, OK, this is all based on the score. But what if I want to know what order the sequence of things happened? So I'm going to quickly sort by time, right? So time and space, the two dimensions, our brain is trying to weave this information and transcribe into a root cause analysis, right? So here, so when I switch to time, I can see there is a feature flag service that was triggered on. So somebody decided to turn on a feature flag. We are modern development, continuously releasing features and turning them on in production, right? So when the feature was turned on, right then there, the front-end client having a lot of errors, and this catalog service seems to be the biggest troublemaker. So now, so if I take a quick look here, it's having pod crash looping and application errors. So I want to jump into the relevant, again, dashboards, right? So I want to look at my Kubernetes monitoring data. I want to look at my open telemetry data, all the data, application observability, Kubernetes monitoring. Everything is already part of Grafana Cloud. It's already there. So we weaved this intelligence into all the Grafana Cloud products. It was it took the village to build this product. The Grafana Labs is very unique. So it's 100 startups in a startup. So And Tom like said, right, we kind of let the engineers do whatever they want, in some funny way. But then once in a while, Tom will come around and say, you know what, this is actually something that we should do together. And then he will put in this OKR, right? I mean, you guys write OKRs. But once in a while, he'll do that. He'll say, Manoj, I have this unique ability to do this, but I only can do it twice in a year, and that's it, right? And he decided, this tech looks pretty cool, Manoj. Let's do it. So he kind of put in this OKR. So we kind of came together, Avengers, assemble, and we built it, right? And I'm excited to, share today, and quickly going back to slides now. So everything I showed you is now available to all the Grafana Cloud Pro customers. We already started rolling it out in production, right? It's really happening right now as I speak. And by October 2nd, I think the date, everybody will have it, right? Everybody will have access to it. So you guys can launch it, play with it, start asserting on your data. Now, this is all fun. But while we are building this product, right, we needed some really solid design partners to come and work with us, right, and who could actually give me early feedback. So now this is where I want to bring in my good friend, Olin. He runs this magical system called Aladdin. So Olin, tell me about Aladdin.
Yeah, so thanks for having me up, Manoj, first of all. Great to be here for ObservabilityCON. So before I pick on you a little bit about getting beers, we can talk about Aladdin. So I am part of BlackRock, and one of our most important platforms is Aladdin. And Aladdin is an operating system for investment managers, and it brings together the data, the technology platform, and the people to manage money in real time. And my team in particular, the observability team, is very focused on all the signals that have come up in today's talks, right? Your logs, your traces, especially your metrics, and making those available both from a tooling perspective and from a user experience perspective to enable our teams to resolve issues faster, right? So that's the purpose of what we're doing in observability. Now, to get back to the asserts conversation, when we were at ObsCon in London last year, Manoj was like the new guy, right? He was brand new, and we're getting beers, and I kind of cornered you because I was really interested in the asserts platform, the asserts product. And I think what is super cool about, first of all, how cool was that demo? Right, well done. But specifically, I was very excited because we have our biggest core partnerships with teams like SRE within our organization. And they are asking for more and more insights from the existing investment that we've made in things like metrics, logs, traces. And this platform is about extracting more information, more connectivity, more value with things like a service graph, right? All those different things connected, a workbench. These were precisely the things that our SREs are beating down the door for us to do. And I think we've been talking about that in our partnership as telemetry in practice. How do we use these things? And asserts is kind of like pushing us more towards driving those actions and ultimately resolving the issues we see in the infra. So that was the excitement that got us started.
Thank you. So when I first met Olin in London last year, so I told Olin, okay, you guys are the biggest asset management company in the world. I'm sure you have a lot of money. You can afford any tools. It's not like you have to use Grafana, right? So, but then what is the thing that excited you most? And then Olin started telling me, Manoj, we have put a lot of effort in instrumenting our app. We have great engineers. The system has been there for rock solid. It's the foundation of our product, of our platform. And we don't throw away all those investments, And I read your blog and I saw your thing. So that kind of got me really excited because as an engineer, we not only want to use this out-of-the-box metrics, we want to actually instrument our code, right? Monitoring as a code, is something that we all believe in. So Olin, tell us how it's been your journey, coming onboarding asserts into your
100%.
platform.
We started with open source Prometheus, and metrics has been a core part of the culture in observability internally. But as we've made the transition and we've grown that estate and we've built and built and built with Grafana, what we realized is, the curse is going back and re-instrumenting, right? If you have to go back into your code base and redo the things you've done, that is the worst possible outcome. And what was super exciting, even in London a year ago, especially now, with what you're seeing here, is that asserts can be driven from the metrics that you already have, right? And I think that element of being able to always be after more leverage and more value from the existing estate that we've built was the reason that we wanted to get super involved. And frankly, the partnership has been great. You stopped by the office, we've been working together, the teams, these things are, we're seeing the evolution of asserts as a product that can make more and more leverage from those existing investments we've made. And that's the thing that has kept us really excited, and we continue to be excited, seeing the kind of stuff you're seeing on stage today.
So, I was in BlackRock office yesterday and got this beautiful view of Hudson Yards. And so Olin and the team was in the room, and we were starting to talk about what's next, how exactly you want to take it to your entire group.
Yeah, 100%. I would say biggest plug I can make. If this demo was interesting, if hearing about the stuff we're doing with asserts is interesting, there was a session at 3:30 today with Baljeet, that's on my observability team, and with Gotham from Grafana. You got to see this. You got to go to that session and see all the stuff that we're doing there. So my biggest shout out, you want to know more, go to the experts. But just in summary, I think our partnership, continuing to see asserts cover more and more, and importantly, it's that concept of telemetry and practice and workflow, and the idea that we need the tools in the hands of our operators and engineers. And frankly, I was talking today with one of our team members here from BlackRock, and people have looked at this tool, and the experience is there's intuition, there's value, there's linkage of all these systems. That's what we need in the hands of more and more people. So our vision is get this existing data set, bring it into this asserts environment, and ultimately hand it off to our key operators. And we're getting the same thing that probably everybody in the room is looking for. Reducing MTTR, getting after incidents faster, and basically being able to power, a healthier Aladdin platform.
Thank you. Thank you, Olin.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. So if you like everything you saw there, come and meet us in expert booth. Come to the session that's coming in the afternoon. And now I'm excited to bring back Raj on the stage to take us home. Thank you, Raj.
Cool. Thanks, Manoj, Olin, Tom, Jen, and Aaron. Great keynote. We're over time, as I was worried about. We're running about 10 minutes behind. I was supposed to do a quick recap. I'm going to just buzz through that. But in the meantime, I'm going to invite the presenters to come up for a few questions, because we definitely wanted to do that. So my recap is we talked about a lot of stuff today. Obviously, around 3 key areas: making our stack easier to use as we go more mainstream, using AI and ML to help both save you money with adaptive telemetry, as well as help you troubleshoot better. And I hope you're excited about some of the announcements that we're making this year at ObservabilityCON. I know I am. So I think we have just a few minutes for Q&A. Like I said, we're running a bit over. And Matt's going to run through that with us. Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. OK, so the first question is, Anonymous asks, what are the most common failure modes when building a new observability stack, and how can I avoid them?
I've only done it once. I don't think I've got enough of a pattern to know what the failure modes are.
You got it right, though, didn't you?
I don't know. You tell me. I think one of the things we did differently with LGTM was, instead of putting all of the logs, metrics, traces, profiles into one service, we put them into separate services, right? And that was very different to the established kind of observability stacks like Elastic and so on, right? And we did that intentionally, right? We did that because we wanted to be able to change things for how we did logs and not have to figure out how to do that for metrics, right? So we wanted to be able to innovate in each individual project, and get them to learn from each other, and honestly, to get the teams kind of separated so that we could scale them more quickly and they could be more productive. I know some people would say, sorry, did you want to know?
No, I was going to say, but what about if people are building their own stack to observe their own stack?
Well, I was going to get to that.
But a bit quicker, please.
Oh, right. Yeah. I know. I would say, in hindsight, one of the criticisms of the LGTM stack is I've got 4 things to install or 5 things to install with Pyroscope, right? So So yeah, like, trying to find a balance there is difficulty. But if you're using the LGTM stack to build your own kind of observability solutions internally, I guess I would say, like, you can try and roll it all yourself, and you need a certain level of expertise there, right? But leverage what's out there. Leverage the mix-ins that are all open source, right? Use, all of the projects out there and learn how to assemble them together. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and a few people asked this same question as well. It seems like Grafana Cloud is where most innovation is happening. Will this trend continue going forward?
I'll take a shot at that. So, I'd say most of the work we do from an engineering perspective at Grafana Labs is still open source, right? That's where the majority of however you want to measure it, by head count, by lines of code, by just team effort. But we're definitely focused in terms of Grafana Cloud, we believe, is the best way to consume all the innovation that we're delivering in a really seamless, easy-to-use manner, right? So ObservabilityCON is definitely focused more on Grafana Cloud. At this point, from a revenue perspective, Grafana Cloud accounts for more revenue than our on-prem solutions. But we're still actively selling, supporting our on-prem solutions. We want to meet our customers where they are. The fact that we can offer both on-prem and cloud, or a hybrid deployment, is an advantage for Grafana as a company. But I think it's a fair observation that we consider the future of where we're going to be our cloud product, and quite frankly, we need to prioritize balancing that innovation. So I'd say that we're still putting most of our innovation in open source, and that's just a fact that you can go look at our GitHub, go look at our innovation cadence on open source projects like Grafana, Loki, K6, and others. But from a product standpoint, we're definitely quite focused on Grafana Cloud.
I'd also, do you mind if I?
Yeah, please, yeah. Take as long as you like.
Thank you, Matt. So I'll also add that, like, there's a chicken and egg here, right? Like, cause and effect. The reason a lot of innovation is in Grafana Cloud is because it's significantly easier for us to deliver value there, right? Because we're running it, we don't have to figure out how to package it up, how to document the operations side of things, how to figure out how to integrate it, right? We can make a huge number of assumptions that you have metrics, logs, and traces stored in known locations, right? In Grafana Cloud. Like, if we try to deliver, there was a diagram that Jen had about adaptive metrics and how many individual components are involved in delivering that end-to-end feature. If we tried to package that up and deliver it, on-premise, it would be really challenging. It would slow us down and would slow down the pace of innovation at the company. So I would turn it around to say, like, the reason we're able to release so much stuff so quickly is because we do it in cloud, where it's easier for us to do that.